ABA is all about the data. So why is measurement so important in ABA, and how can we make sure that we are taking and reporting accurate data? Hi, I'm Shira.
And I'm Shayna. We're behavior analysts that create weekly content about how to teach children with autism so that they make real progress. And we create shareable resources to make your job just a little easier. Today's topic is all about measurement in ABA. And if you want more videos like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on new video releases.
So data these days is everywhere. In any one of the technologies that we use, it's all over the Instagram algorithm. It's how companies decide what products are successful and what products are not successful. I don't know about you, but when I talk about something and it becomes an Instagram ad, they are listening and they are taking data on my activities online, on the things that I've clicked, on what I'm interested in, so that they can use those data points to make decisions. It is everywhere, and it's also so important in how we do ABA and the programs that we do with our kids.
Measurement is essential to everything that we do, and it's especially essential in ABA. And today we're going to talk about why it's so essential in ABA. I think one time I heard a saying that, without data, you're just another person with an opinion, and that's always stuck with me, right? Well, I think that blah, blah, blah. Well, where's the data? Come on, we need to see that.
And two of the dimensions of ABA, so these are like the foundations of ABA. There's 7 of them. 2 of them are to be effective and to be analytic. That means that we want to make decisions not based on subjectivity, not based on someone's decision or opinion, but really based on something tangible, something concrete. So we want our decisions to be effective, meaning like, are we actually making progress? Are these programs helping this family? Are they not? Is the behavior decreasing? Is it increasing? And the only way we could be effective is if we have real, tangible data to support something working or something not working. And then we have to be analytic in looking at that data and making decisions based on that data.
So many questions that I've gotten are, well, what do you mean by data? Like, can I just do handwritten notes? Is that enough data? Or do I need to do trial by trial data, which means I need to take data on absolutely everything, everywhere that I'm teaching? But then, you're in the natural environment, you're trying to teach, but you've got a clipboard and a pen, and it's just so cumbersome, and you can't teach and take data at the same time. That's tough. And then there's places I go in that have reams and reams of data, and no one's ever looked at it. So we really do have to ask ourselves, what's the purpose of what we're collecting data on? And that might answer some of those other questions.
Yeah, and what we're trying to do with the data really is take out that subjectivity. We want to make things as objective as possible. And there is no right way to take data, but you don't want it to become cumbersome, and you want it to be, like I said, effective. So the first thing before we know if anything is working or not working, before we start any treatment plan or anything, is to get baseline data. We want to really know like what is happening right now, and not again from someone's opinion or just from somebody giving over like their thoughts on the topic, but knowing really concretely what is happening right now. And we call that baseline.
And, in terms of that baseline data, we need to assess where the learner's at, because if we put a program in and the learner already knows the program, we're teaching something that isn't really being taught, something the learner already knows, and we're wasting that learner's time. B, you'll probably see some negative behavior because they're saying, come on, I already know this already. Like, stop teaching me stuff I already know. But secondly, if you baseline something, or if you put a program in that you haven't baseline and it's way too hard for a learner, you're also going to see negative behavior increase because it's way too hard. So that baseline or that beginner assessment is going to tell you where that happy medium is between being too easy and too hard for a learner, for sure.
And sometimes when there are concerns about challenging behavior, and something just feels really problematic, and my suggestion is always like, well, let's measure it. Let's take some data. And sometimes what you find from that is, really there's something else going on here. It's not really having to do with the learner. Maybe something happened at home. It could be really not as big of a problem as somebody is making it out to be. It could just be happening a couple times a week. Those couple times a week could be, severe, but then you would tackle it very differently. So sometimes just starting with that measurement gives you a lot of insight into what's really happening here. Is it really as big of a problem as it feels like? There's always the people who, think everything is a big problem and worth tackling. And that's where we come in with the measurement to be able to make those decisions very objectively and say, well, look, it's not really happening so often, or it's happening only close to bedtime. Like he's just tired, nothing's betterly. So those are really important ways that we can eliminate a lot of, work and effort and time spent that we didn't need to spend.
Absolutely. So if we had to sum it up and say like a Cole's Notes version of what is the importance of data, you said a lot of really great things. And, one thing that you said is that it helps analyze problem behavior and it helps us look to see if there's something else going on there. It also helps track learners' progress. Are they making progress? Are they making huge gains? Are they making only small gains? Are they not making gains at all? So that data will be able to tell you that.
Yeah, and it also helps us know how quickly are they learning. I love measuring rate of progress, because that tells us sometimes if learners are learning something very quickly, it takes them, 1 or 2 trials to pick something up and then they're getting it really quickly, then we think, wow, we don't even really need to teach this anymore. So measuring their rate of progress is really helpful. And knowing if the program is working for them or not working is a really important need for that measurement.
Absolutely. That data will also allow us to see whether that program needs to be modified in any way. Oh, look, it's too hard. Let's make these tweaks. Or, oh, it's too easy. Let's make these tweaks. Like I said before, the importance of data is that it helps us know where to start with a learner, right? And then whether that program needs to be modified as we go. Helps track learners' gains, right? And it can help us understand that problem behavior.
And we measure a lot of things when we're doing programming. And one of the interesting things to measure sometimes is how often are programs even being run. So not even the data on the program, but we'll do program checkoff lists, or even if it's just a note form, how often are programs being run. And that is a really valuable piece of measurement, because sometimes that tells us, well, they're not making progress because they're only running this program once a week, or they've focused on this one too much and this one not enough. So these are all different types of ways to measure the effectiveness of the program as a whole. We're looking at time of day, we're looking at what they were eating, do they have snack time? All of these pieces are really important parts of the measurement, so that we can get really a full picture on if something's not working, why isn't it working?
Okay, so I just had to take a deep breath, because as we're talking about data and the importance of data and all these things that data can be helpful for, I got a little bit overwhelmed, oh my gosh, how much data do you want us to take? Because I really did get in the field to teach. My passion is making progress with these learners. My passion isn't, entering data into, some program to see an Excel data sheet. So let's kind of break that down and say, yeah, you know what, data is doable. Every agency collects data a little bit differently, but it doesn't have to be cumbersome. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. So let's take a look at that.
And I think what we want to think about is, you're right, data for the sake of data is not the point. We don't just want to have papers and papers of data, but what we want to do with the data is make really observable and measurable goals. And once we have enough baseline data, we can then turn it into a goal. And when we're thinking about data, we always have to think about that goal. What is our future goal here with the data? Is it, to reduce problem behavior? Is it to increase the scale? Is it communication? What is that bigger goal that is observable and measurable? And how will we know that we've reached that goal? And this comes up with anything related to ABA programming, also IEP goals, anything behavior related. You always want to think about the data is serving the purpose of this end goal. You want to choose a goal, obviously, that is short-term enough that it's achievable, but long-term enough that, you're making progress over time. And then that data along the way is really telling you, am I working towards this goal or not?
Yeah, the data should really, in reality, be individualized for the learner. So, each learner isn't going to have the exact same data that you're collecting, because you may need to know different things from each learner. So usually, most, if not all of the time, we have some type of assessment data. I mean, that's your very first thing you should be starting with, is some type of assessment. Easy baseline is an assessment, but there's other more formal assessments like enables, VB-MAP, AFLs, that type of thing. But the very first step is assessment. Second step then is, from that assessment, let's develop that plan, right? And that's usually the BCBA who develops that plan. The teacher develops that plan. Really, you're stating the goals in observable, measurable ways, and then trying to, take data based on that. So, okay, my goal is that, the learner has to raise their hand at least 3 times throughout a 30-minute circle. Okay, great. Well, I'm not going to take percentage correct on that because I said at least 3 times. So that's right. I just need a clicker. That's all I need is a clicker. Oh, that learner is taking, raising their hand 3 times. Click, 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 or a tally chart. That's it. That's the data. That's what I need for that program.
So when you're developing that plan, it is so important to think about your data collection method, because I see so often the general rule on IEPs being the learner will, accomplish this goal, whatever that goal was, 80% over 2 days. And that's become like the default, right? Because for some reason, we feel like if we have percentage data, it's a lot more accurate. That's actually not the case if you're looking at frequency of hand raising or duration of time on task. Percentage just would not be the right goal. So you have to think about what is your data collection method going to be. And if it's going to be frequency or tally or probe or any one of those things, then that would be the measurement that you're putting in the goal.
And frequency data in a classroom is so much easier to take than percentage correct, because if you're doing percentage correct, you have to take data not only on the number of trials that the learner did, but also the number of trials presented altogether. So that's a lot. And a teacher can't do that. There's no way a teacher can do that for every single student in every classroom at any given point of the day. So oftentimes with some of these goals on a behavior plan, really it's about, okay, I'm going to take data for a 5-minute increment once a week on this kiddo. I'm going to teach way more than 5 minutes once a week, but that's it. It's just a cold probe at the end of the week, and this is what I'm going to do. Or if I have a secondary person in the classroom, they can do this for X amount of time or during this circle time specifically.
Yeah, I love that. One of the common goals is, student will greet a peer 8 out of 10 opportunities. And I'm thinking like, are you going to count every single time that student had an opportunity to greet someone, but didn't do it? And you're only looking for, it's just completely unrealistic. So I just had to put that out there.
Sure, it's venting now that school's starting again. Anyways, so, looking at your goals from your treatment plan and then matching the data to those, right? And, that is a given. So data collection doesn't have to be cumbersome. Shira mentioned before, we're looking at how often, programs are actually run. And the way we can get that is a simple program checkoff list, right? We should have something where, here's all the programs that you're doing or collecting data on with your student. Great. You know what? Let's put dates beside those and just check them off when you actually got to those. It helps a teacher or a behavior analyst be way more organized. Yep, got to that. Oh, I'm seeing that I didn't get to that one. It's the first one I'm going to do tomorrow. Simple data with a check mark, easy peasy. With net data collection, natural environment teaching, you can put in even just rating scales, right? Like, oh yeah, he did this about this it's not even a percentage. It would be just, like he did this most of the time. He did this some of the time. It's subjective, but it's, probably way better than being able to, having to carry a clipboard with you and taking data and then ruining the quality of that play while you're playing, unless you have somebody else who can take that data for you, or you have the time to go back and review video on that.
And the other thing to note, especially in a classroom, is you're doing a lot of teaching, and it does become very cumbersome to be taking data on everything that you're teaching. So data doesn't have to be collected every single time you're teaching. You could make up a plan to say, I'm going to collect data on this student this day or twice a week or during this lesson. And as long as you're still teaching, you're continuing to run the program and run the goals, but you're collecting more of like that, once a week or twice a week data. That is totally doable, and that's a lot easier to do, and it's within the confines of measurement.
So we talked a little bit about collecting the data, but let's talk about the analyzing piece of the data, because so often, like I mentioned, we go in and there's lots of data. People know how to take data, or people are taking more data, and that's amazing. But it's, what do you do with that data? So, we need to make sure that people have time throughout their day to be looking at that data, or once a week, there's, time that's reserved to take a look at that data to see if there's trends or what those trends are in the data. Because if it's not being looked at, you might as well not even be collecting the data in the first place.
And I love for this to be an activity that, the whole team can do, because if the whole team is, expected to do data, whether it's instructor therapists or teachers or assistants or paras or anything, everybody should be able to understand where that data is going. I think it helps them understand the meaning of why they're taking that data, because if we can look at it over time and see that, the instances of negative behavior have decreased because we've recorded the frequency over time, and we've implemented whatever strategy, then that's really motivating for everybody to know that now we're making decisions based on this. And now we can make certain changes, or, reduce the level of support, or increase or add another skill, or teach something new. And that's exciting. So include everybody in that kind of decision. And when you're analyzing that data, it does have to be meaningful.
Such a good point. So I'll go in to observe a client, and, I'll actually show the therapist I'm working with the graph and say, oh, look at this graph, it's stagnant, or, oh my gosh, look at this graph, and look at this graph. This is perfect. Look, it's going up.
You get excited over these things.
And then there's other ones that aren't going anywhere. You show them and you say, I'm making this change, or we need to make a change because look, even involving them in the change in terms of, well, okay, so this isn't working. What do you think might work? Do you have some ideas? You know the student better than I do because you work with them 20 hours a week. And as we start to incorporate therapists into, looking at the graphs, and we're making those decisions together, I actually get therapists coming to me more often and saying, hey, Shana, look at these graphs. I think it's time to move on. Or look at these graphs. Do you have any solutions? Or, hey, I'm thinking about this. And it's really nice because now therapists come to me, and instead of just saying, well, I think that blah, 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 they're actually saying, no, look at the data. And I love it.
Mm-hmm. So once you've analyzed the data, then you can problem solve what is working, what's not working, what can we change, how can we advance the programs, and then you just keep doing that. Then we're starting a new skill, we're going to start that process again, we're going to baseline that skill, we're going to record data, and we're going to continuously collect data and make decisions based on that data. And it really is such an important process in everyone's learning. Like I said, it's in all of our lives, and it's how everyone should be making decisions.
You're right. So, once we've analyzed that data, and our team is now starting to analyze that data, we can bring everybody together and really make those decisions that advance the student and are in the best interest of our students and our staff, to be quite honest, right? And everybody we work with. So I think that's amazing. For more information on measurement and ABA, click the link in and around this video or in the description to claim your free ABC datasheet. We also encourage you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any future videos, and leave a like and comment below if you have any further questions.